Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1990's Represent. We're starting off our third cycle of 1995 with an album, and this completes the trifecta of kind of the three main albums, I would say, of 1995 that really kind of got me into, taking music more seriously. And we've already covered the other two, which were Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette, and then the self-titled debut by Garbage. And now we're working on the self-titled debut of Foo Fighters. Some people just call it self-titled. Some people call it Foo Fighters. I've heard it referred to as just Ray Gun because of the cover there with the kind of classic, I think Buck Rogers Disintegrator is what that's called. But a incredible album, a great kind of first album for this band in quotes on this video because for this album because Dave Grohl essentially played every single instrument on this album. He wrote did all the lyrics, did all the kind of like all the instrumentalization, with the exception of like one small guitar part on one song. We'll get to that a little bit later. But basically a one-man band for this album, and then he kind of had to go out and hire obviously when it kind of picked up steam and they wanted to tour with it, had to bring in additional musicians, and then the band's kind of evolved over time when they brought in other members like Taylor Hawkins a couple years later. A couple years after that, they brought in Chris Shiflett. They brought Pat Smear. I think Pat Smear left and came back. Then I think like in the mid 2000s, or Rami Jaffe's now in the band, and I think he was a session musician with them for a while, and of course is now a full-fledged member of the band. And then, of course, Josh Freese now on drums, replacing the late Taylor Hawkins. But basically, just a very cool evolution of that band overall. But Dave Grohl, basically, like I said, a one-man band kind of for this album. We have some notes here. We're going to go through these notes. Just going to discuss kind of like the album and things like that. So let me just get this open. All right, so Foo Fighters, self-titled, released July 4th, 1995. I probably didn't listen to it until like maybe like the late fall, I think, because that's kind of when I really got into just music, was that time period. I think a friend of mine had the album, and then maybe I think it was like maybe mid-fall. I think it was late fall by the time I picked up the album, because I picked it up as part of like a Columbia House like bundle where it was like got Jagged Little Pill, Garbage is self-titled, this, and a bunch of other albums. It was like 8 albums for $1, and you got to buy like a couple at full price or whatever the deal was at the time. So I think my friend had a copy of this, and I listened to it at his house initially before picking up my own copy. But again, released July 4th, 1995. The only part of the album that he didn't play is one of the guitars on the track Ecstatic. That was played by Greg Dooley. I remember seeing the music video. The first music video I think for this I saw was, I think it was All Stick Around. And I see Dave Grohl, who I kind of only know from Nirvana at that point and only know him as a drummer, see him up on like the screen with a guitar and singing, and I'm like, my mind was completely blown at this, because I kind of just felt, or was like, if he's a drummer and he probably practices all the time at drumming, it probably takes a lot of just dedication and effort to get good at just one instrument. So my mind was blown that he was now, he was proficient in multiple instruments, and then later find out that he did not just the guitar work, but also all the bass tracks as well and stuff like that. So at the time, my mind was blown, because I kind of figured if you're playing one instrument, you're probably putting a lot of work into just that instrument, and it probably takes a lot of time just to get good with that. So I was kind of just blown away with the fact that he was good with basically every instrument, and like by the album did all the instruments himself, with the exception of the one guitar part on Ecstatic. We mentioned it earlier. Alanis Morissette, Garbage were the kind of like other albums I was listening to heavily at the time. Those three bands or artists, including Foo Fighters, are what really got me into just music in general. Like before that, I was listening to maybe stuff on the radio. I had like a couple like tapes, maybe a couple CDs, but I really wasn't taking it super seriously. In 1995, something just clicked where basically I was starting to take it seriously. I remember I got like for Christmas that year, got like a Casio keyboard. I no longer have it, unfortunately, but it didn't have any way to record off of it unless you like put like a tape recorder next to it. But it was like a Casio keyboard synthesizer, and I remember just like having a lot of fun messing around with that. Let's see here. If you ever, I would highly recommend checking out Dave Grohl's autobiography, The Storyteller, because he goes into great detail about like recording this and all the kind of stuff that led up to it, including I think he said this in multiple interviews. After Kurt Cobain's death, he had a hard time, obviously, dealing with that. So remember, in one part, I think it was in the book, in various interviews, was just went to Ireland to just kind of get away from everything for a little bit. Saw a hitchhiker approaching his car. He was driving, and the guy was wearing a Kurt Cobain shirt. And I think that's kind of when Dave Grohl decided he's like, hey, like it's time for me to start over, and then kind of like started pursuing his own kind of music. The album was produced by Dave Grohl, but also produced by Barrett Jones. They recorded over like a week in 1994. Let's see here. Dave, I think initially when this came out, wanted it to be anonymous, so he named the album just Foo Fighters, based on kind of like I think his interest in like UFOs, and I think he was reading a UFO book at the time, and took the name of this for I think it was like World War II, a World War II name for UFOs. So that's where the name came from. Eventually, it wasn't long before it was found out that it was Dave Grohl, and then kind of took off from there. He had composed many of the songs at home prior to, I think it was like prior to joining Nirvana, and then also some of the stuff was composed, I should say, composed before and during his time with Nirvana. He did it on like an 8-track recorder at home, I think. Let's see here. There's only a handful of songs that were kind of not composed prior to Kurt Cobain's death, and those songs are "This Is a Call," "I'll Stick Around," "Ecstatic," "Ecstatic," and "Watershed." Those are all composed after Kurt Cobain's death. But and those are some of the most like iconic tracks on the album. I think like "This Is a Call" is a great lead, like a great like first track on the album, and then "I'll Stick Around" was the first music video I saw for the album. So those are some of the bigger songs on the album. The album came out to really good reviews. Let me actually just pull those review scores up. Basically here, very positive overall. Looks like AllMusic has it at a 4 out of 5. Blender has it at a 5 out of 5. The Chicago Tribune looks like 3.5 out of 5. I believe B plus from Entertainment Weekly. The Guardian has it at a 4 out of 5. 9 out of 10 from NME. Q only has it at 3 out of 5. Rolling Stone has it at a 4 out of 5. Rolling Stone Album Guide also 4 out of 5. And Spin has it at a 7 out of 10. So overall, very good reviews. I don't know where I rank this necessarily in my album rankings. It's not in my top like 4. My top 4 I think are definitely in order are There's Nothing Left to Lose. Absolutely love that album. Then Wasting Light, another incredible album. After that I go with but Here We Are, which are their newest. And then probably fourth is probably what was I say The Color and the Shape. I think this might fall either after The Color and the Shape but also Echo, Silence, Patience, and Grace is also really good. So this might actually be like my like 6th most favorite album out of like their 11, because I think they're up to 11 now. But I would say like they've definitely improved their sound over the years. So this is a really good like first entry, but I think like obviously their follow-up album, The Color and the Shape, I think kind of just blows it away. And then my favorite overall is There's Nothing Left to Lose, which is a more kind of chilled out album, because I think it was just 3 members of the band at the time, just Dave, Nate, and Taylor. I think they were like living in Virginia, just kind of chilling there. And I think that really comes through on the record. And then But Here We Are is also just incredible. So I think I'd probably rank this. Let me see if I were to say, and then the other ones, well, I don't know what the other rankings on the others would be yet. That might be a whole separate video. But I'd probably say There's Nothing Left to Lose, Wasting Light, But Here We Are, The Color and the Shape, probably Echo, Silence, Patience, and Grace, and then I think this is maybe like at like number 6. I can see it being interchanged with Echo, Silence, Patience, and Grace, but I think the sound and the kind of like more, I don't want to say more mature, but like definitely their sound evolved I think when a lot of the band members had children, which is kind of happened around the time of Echoes, Silence, Patience, and Grace. And then Wasting Light is just incredible because that was like several years off. I think it was like a 4 year gap. I think the only thing they released between that and between Echo, Silence, Patience, and Grace, and Wasting Light was the first greatest hits collection. I think they were probably still obviously touring, but they were busy having kids at the time. But so I think I would probably say this is probably like number 6 on my overall list. There's some absolute classics on this album though. So in my opinion, there's no such thing as a bad Foo Fighters record. Like one of the jokes I remember seeing is like there are no C tier. If you're doing like a tier list, there's S, A, and B. Everything else is like Foo Fighters albums don't have C, D, and E and F tiers at all. But we kind of got a little off track there. But we had let's see here. There's some great music videos for this album. The music video for Big Me I think is iconic because it was based on kind of the Mentos commercials of the time period, like where whatever you were watching, you would see those kind of silly Mentos commercials, and the Big Me music video is just a great kind of parody or spoof on those. The All Stick Around music video is also great. Let's see here. Let's get into our track listing, and then we'll probably be wrapping up the video after that. So, tracks here looks like 12 tracks at 44 minutes, basically 44 minutes and 4 seconds. See, track 1 is This Is a Call, just an absolute classic, a great way to start the album out. Right after that, you have I'll Stick Around. I think I like I'll Stick Around a little bit more. So you go from a really good song with This Is a Call right into I'll Stick Around, which is probably might be one of my favorite tracks on the album. But I'll Stick Around is great. Then you go into Big Me, which I think is the shortest track on the album by a few seconds. I think that and Watershed are the shortest, but Big Me is shorter by a few seconds. Big Me is just like a fun song. Got a great music video. Alone and Easy Target was a weird one for me at first because like that's track 4. I remember the first time I heard this song, I don't think my friend was like indicating that he was playing a Foo Fighters record. I think it was already in the process of playing it when I was first time I listened to it. And just like the tone of the song and the way Dave Grohl does the vocal on the song, it sounds very much like Kurt Cobain singing. I initially thought it was a Nirvana song at first when I first heard the album, like what was it, almost like 29 years ago now or something. So thought it was a Nirvana song at first, but really good song there. That's track 4 is Alone or Alone plus Easy Target, Alone and Easy Target. Track 5 is Good Grief. Track 6 is Floaty. One of the favorite songs on the album, kind of a little more like subdued, a little more chilled out. Track 7 is Weenie Beanie, I think named after a restaurant in, I think it's, let me actually just look this up really quick. Song by Foo Fighters, but it's also, I think, based on, let's see here. It's a restaurant, I think in Virginia, maybe. So, yeah, I think it's Arlington, Virginia, the Weenie Beanie. I don't know if it's a chain, but basically it looks like kind of like a fast foodish kind of like place. So basically the name of the song comes from that restaurant. If I'm ever over there, I'll definitely check it out. I don't know if I'll ever get into that part of the country, but Weenie Beanie being named after that. So again, Weenie Beanie is track 7. Track 8 is Oh George. Track 9 is For All the Cows. Really good song, a little kind of a little more mellowed out as well. Track 10 is Ecstatic, again the only track, at least in my research, that has an additional musician on it. So basically 11 out of 12 tracks are pretty much done by Dave Grohl, pretty much by himself. So that was track 10. Track 11 is Watershed. And then closing out the album is track 12 with Exhausted. And Exhausted's a great way to close out the album. Exhausted is also just a really, really good song. Great album, like I said, great album overall. Not my favorite Foo Fighters record, but like I said, you can't go wrong with this album in any way, shape, or form. It definitely, if you listen to this album, then listen to subsequent albums, you can actually totally see, or hear, I should say, how their sound has evolved over close to 30 years now. Like, I think this album was recorded like 30 years ago, released 29 years ago. So basically a lot like it was basically just Dave Grohl at first, and now you have a fully fledged band with like I think like 6 members now. I think yeah, because you have Dave Grohl, you have Chris Shiflett, you have Rami Jaffe, Pat Schmier, Nate Mendel, and Josh Freese. So you have 6 members, or interchange Josh Freese or Taylor Hawkins, but 6 amazing musicians working together. It's just an incredible band. I think Nate was there kind of from the start. I don't think he recorded anything on this, but he was like essentially like the running joke. He was like their first accountant and stuff like that. But that's going to wrap up this video for this basically iconic first entry from the Foo Fighters. Again, I don't think it's my favorite entry, but it definitely is a really good starting point. They definitely started out strong, and I think have only kind of improved over or since then. But it also wraps up the kind of trifecta of the 3 albums that I was listening to the most in 1995. Again, being Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette, Garbage's self-titled debut, as well as Foo Fighters' self-titled debut as well. But that is going to wrap up this video. We'll be back again in a few days. We'll be doing a movie. No idea what that's going to be just yet. We'll be back in a few days with that, and then we'll be back after that with another video game before moving into 1996. But again, that's going to do it for now. So remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one.